Hey everyone, welcome back to the Be Better Tribe podcast. This is your host, Julian Alvarez, also known Julian Alvarez. Wanted to go ahead and welcome you to the first interview of the series. We're going to be diving into stories, lessons, and leadership journeys that inspire growth. And I'm honored to welcome this first individual into this podcast. I'm going to be welcoming Stephanie Moran. It's fun because she hired me back in 2009 as a sales associate at a company called MINDBODY. Little did I know, she helped establish my career. She helped propel me to where I am today. And the reason I wanted Stephanie to join and have her be the first individual on the podcast is because she was not only my first boss, but she truly helped inspire hundreds, if not thousands, of sales associates along her leadership journey at MINDBODY. And she created a massive impact. She has a really large tree of talented individuals that she worked with. And so I really wanted her to be on the show to kind of give us her take on leadership style, what it takes to be successful, and really how she was able to build the talent around her. So let me now welcome in Stephanie Moran. All right, Be Better Tribe. I'm excited to have you here today because this guest, I'm honored to have Stephanie Moran here. She's a leader, a mentor, and a builder of people whose impact reaches far beyond any single role or company. Stephanie was my first boss when I entered the workforce. She gave me my first real shot as a sales associate, making cold calls back in 2009. Then what's crazy is Stephanie entrusted me with the opportunity to manage a team early in my career. That belief at that moment when I was still figuring things out truly forged the path that led me to where I am today. At MindBody, Stephanie built and led programs that didn't just drive results, they developed people. Many of the individuals who came through her teams went on to become VPs, entrepreneurs, founders, and business owners. What made her leadership special wasn't just what she built, but who she built. And what makes this even more meaningful to me is that her impact didn't stop there. To this day, Stephanie is someone I still call, whether I'm navigating a career decision, evaluating an offer, or thinking through a leadership challenge. Her perspective, honesty, and long-term view on growth continue to shape how I lead and how I think about success. So today's conversation is about more than just titles and resumes. It's going to be about how we can compound over time and how we can create opportunities and build confidence and help people around us. So Stephanie, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today. Thank you for taking the chance on me early on in my career. And really thank you for joining Be Better Podcast. And as the first person I interview, I wanted to just give you kudos there for doing this for me. And though first, like my main question for you is like, you've been such an inspirational leader for me. So how did you get into leadership? What was the path from your IC roles, from what you were doing into leadership?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, before I even answer that, I just want to say I'm super honored to be here. Even more honored to be like the first person on your podcast. But, beyond honored that I had any sort of impact on your career, on your life. I mean, I think the coolest thing about leadership, it doesn't go one direction.
Mm.
You have had massive impact on my life as well. And every time the call comes through and a conversation is had, I learned something. And I just like, it's like, sure, you're proud and you're like, that's awesome. Look at what he's doing. But you're also like, just impressed with the growth that's taken place and learn something. So I think that's something that best leaders do is they learn from their people. So how I started leadership, gosh, that's interesting. If you ask my mom, she'll say like when I was 5 years old, I was bossing everybody around. I was always trying to tell my older siblings what to do because I was the youngest of four. But I think, pretty early on in life, I mean, I can remember in high school landing a job with this small company. It was a distributor company. They sold parts to bike shops all around the US. And I landed a job there just like, I'll count spokes. It was like, I'll do whatever. I didn't even know really what spokes were or how bikes were built, but I just wanted to make money. And, most kids were off doing, things they probably shouldn't have been doing. And I was like counting spokes. And by the time I think I was a senior in high school, they'd leave for 2 weeks vacation or a week vacation, leave me to run the business.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I say wow too, because I'm like, dang, you guys were trusting me at like, 16, 17 years old. But I think I learned then just like, grit and work ethic. And I didn't have anybody to lead at the time, but I liked running the whole process from beginning to
Mhm.
end. So I knew that. And then throughout my career, my early stages of my career in telecom, I spent 8 years in telecommunications after high school and so on and so forth. But I think during that time, I wasn't necessarily leading a team. I led a small group of team, but that's really where my AE chops were built. And I was
Mhm.
selling and
Yeah.
you have to treat sales like your own business, no matter, what you're doing, right? Like if you're working for a corporate company and you're one of 15 AEs, like it's your little pocket, your little company, and you've got to
Yeah.
treat it that way. So I think leadership within my own spectrum of whatever task I had and whatever job I did, that happened throughout like my early career in telecommunications. And then I left. I was going to start my own thing. I think that's when I started teaching fitness. I'd had, two kids by then, and I'm like, I'm going to do this stay at home mom thing. I remember when I tried that and realized I'm not good at that. And as a female in business, like learning that about yourself, I will
Mhm.
say is tough because you've got all the moms that are kind of
Totally.
doing like, mommy and me groups, and you're making the choice. You could stay at home, but you're making the choice to go back to the workforce because you're a better mom that way.
Sure.
So when I went back to work, I knew I wanted to lead. And I wanted to lead because I wanted to teach people the things that I had learned. And I think from a leadership perspective, I wanted to have a bigger impact,
Sure.
and so, in came Mind Body, and I had done a small amount of leadership, but yeah, I'll never forget when Bob Murphy, one of my mentors, who I still call today,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, to ask him questions, or Andre, my husband, and I, like he is our biggest mentor, and he's continues to invest in us. I remember him sitting down with me and saying, "You want a sales leadership role, huh? How about a bunch of college students and you teach them how to cold call?" And I
Yeah.
was like, I don't even know what that means, but sure. Like, I was just willing to give it a try.
Mhm. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, really, I think, if I look back on it, I had like small leadership roles in retail and like in telecom. I had a team of three for a little bit. But real leadership chops that came at my body. I mean, went from managing you guys, the sales associates, to then managing the sales reps,
Yep.
to then managing managers, to then managing directors, to then having VPs. And now, I'm running a boutique studio, and it's a bigger boutique, but 5,000 square feet. I have 28 employees, and I manage everybody.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I hope that answers your question, but yeah, I mean that I think the journey started when I was young, but the real chops of leadership I got at MindBody.
Yeah, and it's so funny. Think about the times that you and I spent with Bob, who we'll just spend a minute there. I
Yeah,
still use some of the sales math that he had back
yeah,
in the day. And I'm
yeah,
talking, I was, in 2009, looking back, fresh out of just playing soccer as a senior in college, I was 23 years old, and I
yeah,
was looking and reading over a brilliant
yeah,
brain from the
yeah,
sales that they had. So, like, I think the
yeah,
structure around the sales team was solidified, and you definitely had the gift of gab of teaching cold calling and teaching
yeah,
sales and like
yeah,
really driving that into us. But there's two
yeah.
things that I heard from your answer that
Okay,
I'd love you to like learn, like to ask a little bit more.
okay,
One, you talked about grit and work ethic. So, like,
hmm,
where did you get that from? And then
okay,
the second piece is leadership. Sometimes you have to take the leap of faith and you have to have the courage to take on a role you've never done, because
yep,
maybe one day you are not a manager and then one
yeah,
day you are, and you're
yeah,
not going to have the experience. So you're going to need to take the courage to do that. So, first
yeah,
question for you is like, where did your work ethic come from? Where did your grit come from? Where did your drive come from?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think one culturally, like, historically with my family, I come from, Mexican roots. I mean, my family, my mother was born here. My grandparents were born in the United States, but, the culture, right? And there's just grit in the culture, right? You don't sit down and wait to be fed. You are in the kitchen and you are helping. And like, everybody's helping. It's all hands on deck, so I think, culturally we grew up that way. And then, yeah, I think my mom was very much, fend for yourself to a degree, not in like in a bad way, but like, I just knew if I wanted things, they didn't come easy and I'd have to work for them.
Yeah.
I had all older siblings and, kind of always admiring them, as like older siblings that I'd look up to. And then eventually it was just me. So, like they all grew up and went away and it's just me.
Yeah.
And by the time you're the youngest, mom doesn't have time anymore, you know? So,
Crazy.
yeah. So you just kind of have to fend for yourself. And I think, you know, it's interesting. I remember a leader telling me once, I think this was Mike Monsbach, some of the like most gritty, hardworking people had struggle,
Totally.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
had struggle, I mean, I grew up with an alcoholic stepfather. So by the time it was just me and my mom and him alone in the house, it's like, I'm battling having to figure out what time to come home is the best time, where he's going to be the most manageable,
Sure.
or make sure you don't bring friends over because he might be off the cuff, So I think some of that grit's also learned from like, sadly, or maybe
Experience.
not sadly, right? Like,
Experience. Yeah.
yeah, the struggle that maybe you have to deal with in life. And so you're like not handed that silver spoon or whatever it might be. And you got to work at stuff and you got to figure out how to handle really tough situations. And I think, from a sales and leadership perspective, like sales is tough. You're handling really unexpected situations. Leadership, you're very much handling unexpected situations. So,
Yeah.
like, I think that the unknown, like the grit, I would give it a good mixture of like my upbringing, my culture, my mom being like this strong, independent woman who like only went through eighth grade and then, figured out how to, yeah, educate herself and like learn and, take care of her kids to, the struggle that I had throughout high school. Like all those things I think really played a massive part in be respectful, earn your keep, go for the things you want, don't hesitate, you know, and get stuff out of your way, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, I love it because it's real, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
people are going to deal with a lot of different challenges in life, whether it's in the house, whether it's a coach, whether it's a sales leader, whether whatever it is, it's like we all deal with certain things. And the more that you can adapt to that, the more that you can put that into your drive. And like you mentioned, your mom and your siblings really helped you create, to me, it sounds like they were role models of like what
Big
hard
time.
work did, what you can accomplish. And like it seems like you just went and ran with it because
Yeah.
you did check off so many of those boxes and were and are extremely successul.
Thanks,
As we
Jay.
think about, yeah, I mean, definitely anyone who could see your career know that.
Oh, thanks.
So getting into like more of like when you think about developing people, we look back into like your leadership at MindBody or CYB and your current studio and all this
Mhm.
stuff. Um, what do you focus on when you're developing an environment for people to grow? So like I would say like whether it's a parent, whether it's a sales leader, whether it's like whoever is working with individuals on their
Mhm.
team, trying to get them to grow,
Yeah.
what environment would you want to build for them?
I think that the environment I've always paid the most attention to is a trusted environment.
Okay. Key.
So I think that if I look to where I am today, and small business is if you want to open one, give me a call and I'll let you know it is probably the most challenging thing I've ever done. It was easier running a team of 500 people at a $1 billion company. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. Small business is hard. It's so rewarding.
Hmm.
But you are HR, you are payroll, you are everything. You're
Yeah.
everything, right? So the team I have right now, like it's like there's 28 of them, there's one of me. Um, and I've got lots of opinions that come at me. And, it's easy for me to be like, I'm the boss, just deal with it. Like, this is
Yeah.
how it's going to be. But then they wouldn't trust me. And
Mm,
so I think to have an environment that's trusted, where people feel like they can come to me, I might not agree with what you say. How I receive that not agreeing with what you say is really what's going to have impact.
sure.
So I think like a trusted environment, an environment where people feel like they can come to you.
Hmm.
Um, but within that are also boundaries, right? Because people can also victimize themselves to you as leaders and tell you like all the reasons they can't do the thing, right? So, there's boundaries to that. But I think to answer your question, the kind of environment I always like to create is a trusted environment, an open environment. Let's talk about it. Let's deal with it head on.
Yeah.
You know, let's not create drama around it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel like at MindBODY, it was very similar. Like,
Totally.
I very much feel like as we got bigger, it got harder.
Hmm.
But I think early on, and then the stress gets bigger, and then you're like, I don't have time for this, and all that comes into play. But early on, I think of the OG associate crew, the one that you were with, and it was like, you guys, I was like, bring anything to me. Let's talk about anything. Let's deal with anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was the trust really was really important to me. And like looking back in terms of like the individuals that you developed in my cohort of hires, it was fun. It was trustworthy. You gave us a lot of autonomy to like,
Yeah.
I know that you all are young. I know that this is your first experience out of college or in college. Like,
Uh huh.
I know that you are experiencing a lot of things in life, but like,
Right.
here's an opportunity to go grab. And I think what you found is like letting us just like compete against each other and like
Yeah.
positioning us in a way of like, I don't, at least I didn't, and I don't think my other counterparts did. Like, we didn't realize how much of an impact that would make
Yeah.
on our future careers until we started to see like, oh my gosh, this person was at MindBody. They had a year of experience. They went and landed a killer AE job at another company. And like
Yeah.
that story that you created, like
Yeah.
expanded. It was really, really cool. So
Yeah.
like when we're thinking about like those individuals now, your kids are in this position. Like, what advice
Yeah.
do you give to them as younger professionals getting into the workforce now? And like the key, and the question I'm going to ask is like, you hired so many successful SDRs.
Hmm.
What were the key traits that you
Yeah.
tried to identify and
Yeah.
the key traits you would give advice to the young generation of like tap into this and be able to
Yeah.
tell stories around this and like just
Yeah.
give that advice to that younger generation of like, here's what really successful people bring to the
Yeah.
table.
Yeah. I mean, I think back then, right, I was always looking for a certain type of degree, of course. Like, I knew my marketing majors, my business majors, my
Mhm.
communication majors. I knew they'd be really good, but then I'd have somebody coming through that was like an accounting, focus or financial focus. I'm like, this is never going to work, and they crushed it, right? So I
Yeah.
realized like it didn't necessarily have to do with that. I think personality is a big thing. Can you carry a conversation? Doesn't mean you have to be the most outgoing person in the book, but like if I'm going to ask you these questions, like, can you look me in the eye? Can we carry on a conversation? I think that's really important. um, Ability to take feedback, probably the biggest thing, that doesn't go out of style, that doesn't change,
Mhm.
is the ability to take feedback
God,
and
I love that.
apply feedback, right? So people that you can just have real transparent conversations with and just say, hey, listen, here's what's working, but this is not working, and if
Yeah.
you keep doing that thing, you're going to get in your way and you're not going to get the job done. And being able then to say to those people, like, here's how, and try
Mhm.
this or try that or try this. And you got to have three different ways to try it,
Yeah.
because not everybody does everything the same.
Sure.
And go execute on those things. So be willing to try different things, be willing to take the feedback, be willing to hold a good, strong conversation. Try not to be the smartest person in the room. Get rid of the ego, be self aware, um, you know, and be the person that you want working for you.
Yeah, that's a good call.
I think like none of us have time to deal with jerks, right? And like we can all be jerks, but like it gets in the way of getting the job done. So just like, just be a good human and be self aware and, I think we're always, if I could look back at my younger self, probably in my 20s, I was always trying to be the smartest person in the room, the
Mm,
best person in the room, like, get the job and do the thing and be the best. And it's like, you don't learn when you're in that mindset. So
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
That's great. Like, and I'll play it back to you of what I heard, which I think is so important. And you know what's so funny is a couple things. One, it's not a skill set that you can't learn,
yeah,
right? The first thing that you said was be personable, be able
hmm,
to have a conversation, be able to connect with people, which is so vital in anybody's career or even life. Like
yeah,
if you're a person that can able to connect with others, it's going to make life a lot easier and you're probably going to be a lot happier. So that's
yeah,
number one. Number
yep,
two is be able to take feedback, be coachable, check your ego at the door, which is another big thing where I remember during our interview, you taught me how to do this, which the sales associate, you would have us cold call you.
uh-huh.
And I still remember what I sold to you. I sold you season tickets to the Cal Poly soccer team,
You
and the
did.
kicker was I was going to sell you a banner at the end of the stadium to get you more marketing. But the
Yeah,
best part about the interview was you were like, "This is good, great. However,
yeah,
you should try it this way."
uh-huh,
So you would always tell me when I was interviewing people to try to test their coachability,
yeah,
which I think sometimes individuals going for whatever you want in life need to be coachable and they need to
yeah,
be adaptable and not being the smartest person in the room. Like check your ego at the door
yeah,
because anybody can teach you something. So I love that. And then all
yeah,
rooted in work ethic. If you say you're going to do something, you got to do it.
right.
Like
Yeah,
that's really what it is. And like
yeah,
gain that experience, read that book, do what you need to do because that's how you're going to get move forward.
yeah. Yeah, it's funny that you bring up the interviews. Gosh, those were like, I think they would carry on to manager, manager, and manager, and manager. It'd be like, have people cold call you. And I would coach through the cold call. And I'll say this from a leadership perspective, regardless if I was going to hire somebody,
Totally.
because I'd coach them to see if they were coachable, but I'd also be like, an interview is an opportunity to give somebody something.
Yeah.
So if you don't hire them, but they can take that small little piece of
Mhm.
whatever you gave them with them, right? Like you're making the world a better place.
I love
So
it.
yeah,
Yeah, no, that
it's
makes a
so
lot of
funny.
sense. It's so funny because like those concepts aren't just like sales related. It's not sales. It could be applied to anything, whether it's parenting, whether it's being a sales professional, whether it's being a coworker or a
Yeah,
friend or whatever it is. But those things will help you if you're looking for a job and trying to land a job. Like those key areas are where you can focus your time in order to
yeah,
get better to be prepared for those interviews.
yeah.
Uh, Couple last questions here, Stephanie, is when we think about your leadership legacy, when you think about the impact that you made for others, how do you want us to like remember like your impact? Like what is your key like North Star thing that
Yeah,
like
boy.
yeah, if people talked about Stephanie Jennings at MindBody, like what would you have wished that they'd say?
Whew. Gosh, that's a tough question. I think as a leader, especially when you have had the opportunity to lead as many people as I have. I mean, at MindBody at one point, there at the end, I had 500 staff underneath my org, which
Yeah.
like is too many, right? And I could say like back then, I could remember being like, yeah, I got an org of 500 people, like, you know, what a baddie, right? And now I look at that and go like, that doesn't define your leadership, right?
Mm,
Like how many people you can lead or how big your team is, mares, it gives like no merit to the impact you have on people. So I know that there are people that, probably that don't look at me as like, she was the best boss ever. She was the best leader ever because I maybe couldn't have an impact because I couldn't connect.
mm,
Right. So I think, for those people, I'd want them to know that it was a missed opportunity for the both of us.
mm.
I think for the people that I have been able to lead that I was really able to connect with. I just would want them like legacy wise to feel like, um, she was able to teach me something. She was able, like, there's a nugget of information somewhere in a conversation that we had in a moment we had. I mean, you just kind of talked on, you'll always remember the Cal Poly soccer banner interview, right? That
Yeah.
was like part of learning how to cold call, but that there's just one of those memories. I just want to have a nugget of memory for someone and anyone that I was able to lead that they can still use today. I know
Mm,
that when I think of my mentors, it isn't necessarily just like if I look at Bob, there's not like this gold star thing about Bob. There are nuggets of information that I use every day
yeah.
that, he left me with in leadership. And it was not always perfect, right? But it was always, at the end of it, like I could trust him. I knew he would show up for me. And, I knew that he would teach me something. So I think if I just put those three things there, I'd want people to know, like, you could still trust me, you could still call me, that they're able, I can still call her, I can still hit her up if I need something or if I need some advice. I always could trust her. And, I knew she always had my best interest in heart. So I think if I could summarize it that way, that's probably how I put it.
Yeah, and like I'll double down there. Like she had our best interests at heart. Like yeah, like that's true. Like facts and like the nuggets that you said in terms of like developing the whole person. That
Yeah.
is that I think you did, and it's not just like again, it's not the skill set of sales. It's like the whole thing. Like you're gonna
Yeah.
be a better leader. You're gonna learn how to make tough decisions. You're gonna learn how to do this, that, and the other. And so like I love that. It's like leaving a really strong legacy in these pockets and nuggets of learning, which
Yeah.
I think you did, which is fantastic. One important
Yeah.
thing for me, as we're closing up here is I think the youth needs to hear some positivity and the youth
Hmm.
needs to hear some guidance.
Hmm.
There's obviously when you and I worked together,
Hmm.
um, there wasn't social media and there wasn't
Yeah.
like the
So weird.
access to all that, which made
So
life
weird.
a lot easier. And so, like,
Hmm.
my question to you could be really broad. It could be very simple. Is
Yeah.
if you were to give advice to the youth of today, what
Uh-huh.
would that be and why?
Um, it's funny you asked this conversation. I mean, I have youth, right? I have kids, and my oldest is 26 years old, right? And I just gave him advice today. Like, I know, I can't believe you just said that we didn't have social media when we worked together, because that's really like makes me feel really old. But we didn't, we didn't. And I think once you guys got it, I mean, do you remember when someone discovered how to like scan Facebook to
Oh,
get, and that was when you were running the associate team. You
the new
like came to,
the new yoga
yeah,
studios that were coming
yeah,
up.
yeah,
That
you
was
came,
genius. I forget who did that,
genius.
but like that was
I
genius.
remember exactly who did that. I remember you came into my office and you were like, dude, do you know
What
what
do we
they're
do?
doing?
Yeah, what
And
do we
I was
do?
like, I was kind of like, that's genius.
Yeah, yeah,
How do we make that available for everybody?
sure. Yeah,
And
yeah,
then everybody was mad at you because whoever it was mad at you because you told me.
yeah.
But yeah, we didn't have it then. So today I just gave a piece of advice to my youth,
Yep.
and I do say this to like, the people that I have working for me, like, work feels like, I have to be in that place. I have to work there. That's my job, right? I have to be there. And it's such a waste of time for you and your boss and the company you work for. You don't have to be anywhere. Life is so short. Like, it's so short, right? I'm 47 years old. I feel like I'm 27. I worked at amazing like places and MindBody 10 years. It was like such a great time. But the end of MindBody for me was like, I want to own a fitness studio.
I love that.
And I could keep this like, thing going, and the status and the paycheck. And I remember, I'll say this, I remember when I was leaving, somebody at another fitness studio said to me, I heard you're leaving your sales job at MindBody. Like, aren't you like the head haunch there? And oh my gosh, you're walking away from a huge salary. What's wrong with you? Legit. She said those words to me. And like in the pit of my stomach, I was like, I felt like, oh my God, my kids, my family, my husband, like all
Yeah.
these things. And then I
Like,
went,
oh shit. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I think, you'd asked me a question about taking risks. And like, I would say, I'll wrap it up back to this, like, to the youth, like, life is short. It is too short to work somewhere that makes you unhappy.
Oh,
And it is too short to say, I have to do this thing. You might have to go hunt. and get the grit and get the drive and get the grind to find the thing that's better. But life's too short to work for people that you don't connect with, to work with people that you don't enjoy, and to do a job that doesn't make you happy. Like, go find something that makes you happy. And if there's something that you really want to do, you're going to run out of time. So go
Oh,
do it,
I
you know?
love.
Yeah.
Oh, this is why you're number one interview for me because
Uh,
this is authentic. I didn't like
yeah.
I didn't set the stage for you to say that, but
No, you didn't.
it's so perfect because like I often say to my team, to anyone I interact with, it's like if you just change one word in that statement, I don't have to, I get to.
Yeah.
It changes everything. It
Yep.
changes everything. And the fact that like if you're not happy that you get to do that, go do something else.
Yeah.
Life is far too short. And like what I would say is as we wrap up, Stephanie, I found so much value in this conversation because I think it's again authentic, it's real, it's the experiences you and I lived. And if I was to
Mhm.
wrap it up and correct me if I'm wrong here, I think in terms of like just finding success,
Mhm.
identifying talent, being successful in life comes down to a couple different things. One is you really hit home on like you got to connect with people,
Mhm.
you got to be able to take feedback, and you got to work hard.
Mhm.
And then you make decisions that are a little bit courageous and you just follow your passion, follow your life and have that statement written down as I get to. I don't have to, I get to,
Yes,
which is
1,000%.
important.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Stephanie, thank
1,000%.
you so much. Tell the family I said hello.
I
Obviously,
will.
I haven't talked to them forever, but they
I
also have
will.
a special place in my heart. Tell them I said
Uh,
hello, and
will
thank
do.
you for your time. And I definitely will. We will have you back when we get some other associates on the podcast.
I would love to, and this was an
All right.
honor. Thanks so
All
much,
right.
Jay.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
No problem.
Bye.